Good evening, everyone. It is now 7 p.m. It's November 19th, 2018. If you can imagine, this is the last meeting of the 2014-2016 Council. It was really slow moving. It took 18. Yeah, it took a long time. Thank you. Some people don't like us saying that we work as a team. We work as a team, see? They got to correct my memory all the time. We started at 6 p.m. in a closed session. Council reviewed the following minutes. The closed session of council meeting held on October 29th, 2018. Confidential minutes from the closed session of council meeting held on October 29th, 2018. The minutes of the Owen Sound Non-Profit Municipal Housing Corporation closed meeting held on September 18th, 2018. Council reviewed one matter regarding a proposed or pending acquisition of land by the municipality respecting the 10th Street Bridge and received the report for information purposes. Additional business, Councillor Kepke, nothing. Councillor Thomas.
I have one item tonight, Your Worship, on a plaque presentation this coming Saturday.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Go ahead. Brianna.
Through Your Worship, I have the inaugural council meeting and board and committee vacancies.
Thank you. I don't know, I might have a few things to discuss before we get there. Oh, staff, sorry.
Thank you, Worship. Just a reminder of the grand reopening open house this coming Saturday.
Okay. Good. Disclosure of pecuniary interest and the general nature thereof. Anyone? Councillor Dodd?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just to declare that I didn't have a disclosure of pecuniary interest due to in my employment on the closed session for 4A.
Thank you. Number 6, confirmation of minutes. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 29th, 2018, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. B.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that the minutes of the closed session of council meeting held on October 29th, 2018, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. C.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that the confidential minutes of the closed session of council meeting held on October 29th, 2018, as printed, be adopted.
All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Number 7.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that City Council now move into Committee of the Whole to consider public meetings, deputations, and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business.
Thank you. And all in favor? That is carried. So we're now in Committee of the Whole, and we can be a lot more relaxed and less official. We have no public meetings tonight. At 9 on our agenda, we have a deputation, Yoakum Ostertag, the men's program. So I'm here somewhere. Go ahead. Welcome.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Before I'm starting, I would like to acknowledge that we are meeting on Aboriginal land that has been inhabited by Indigenous people, the Saugeen and Ojibwe, for a very long time. Your Worship and Council, I am here to speak about the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women, which will be on December the 6th, and a vigil that will be held at the stairs of the City Hall, the renovated City Hall. And congratulations for the beautiful space you're meeting here. So this day on December 6th marks the 29th anniversary of the massacre of 14 young women at the L'École Polytechnique de Montréal in 1989. These 14 women died because they were women who chose to study engineering, which to this day is a male-dominated profession. As well as commemorating the 14 women whose lives ended in an act of gender-based violence, December 6 also presents an opportunity for all of us, for all Canadians, to reflect on the phenomenon of violence against women and children in our society, including Indigenous women. Here are some statistics that highlight the extent of violence against women and femicide in Canada. This year, between January 1st and August 31st, 106 women were killed, and 3/4 of these women were killed in an intimate relationship. About every 6 days, a woman in Canada is killed by her intimate partner. Since the Montreal massacre, about 1,800 women were killed in Canada. The local women's shelters continue to be full and provide over 9,000 support calls in a year. And of particular interest for me is that Indigenous women are killed at 6 times the rate of non-Indigenous women. And the number of missing and murdered Aboriginal women is close to 4,000, which is a number by the Ministry of Status of Women. And finally, it is a day on which communities can consider concrete actions to eliminate all forms of violence against women and girls and children. And some of the actions that we could think about are to recognize violence against women and children, to speak up when we witness violence against women and children, resist sexist, misogynist, and racist language, learn about root causes of violence in relationships and families, challenge politicians to recognize violence against women as a crucial issue to be resolved. And what we all can do is to talk with others about violence and what we can do to make a change, because it affects all of us. I also want to point out that the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence begin on the International Day of the Elimination of Violence Against Women on November the 25th and end on International Human Rights Day on December the 10th. So I'm asking that City Council endorses this vigil, that City Councilors will attend our vigil here in front of City Hall, and I'm asking you and all of us to consider actions to end gender-based violence against women and children. We all can and need to be part of the change. Are there any questions at this point? Yes.
Councillor Lemon, go ahead.
Very much I agree with what you're saying and support. But there's one thing you didn't mention, and that's violence against seniors.
Yes.
This is one of the problems that's being identified within our communities, that violence against seniors who are unable in some cases to defend themselves. And this has occurred in homes, private homes. It's also occurred in some nursing homes. And I would like you to add that to your list. I think the issue is violence against people of any group. I'm not saying that violence against women isn't a huge problem, but it's violence, people who use violence against other persons. To me, that's an abomination and wrong, morally wrong. And I agree with your comments about what people say in terms very much. But I just wanted to include violence against seniors because it does occur.
But thank you very much for bringing this up. This is really important, and there's more talk about it now than it used to be, but it's still not really in the public eye as it should be. And it's also in the context of violence against vulnerable people. Right? We live in a system, in a hierarchical system. We live in a patriarchy where we try to get more power and control, and so the elderlies have less power than many others. Also, there's some research on it that when there was family violence and domestic violence, at some point it might then be directed against the elders. Right? So children who have been abused in their home and have seen violence there and have experienced violence, they often direct it against others. And then when we get older, and most of us hopefully do, then we are kind of getting the results of that and are the victims of it again, because then we are less powerful. So it's a very good point, and thanks for bringing it up. And again, when it comes to elder abuse, women are even more vulnerable than men. And the whole issue here is also, I mentioned children witnessing domestic violence. It is a huge problem, and that's why we need to talk about violence in general. And often people, and particularly men, who commit violence come from families of domestic violence. Marc Lapine, who killed the 14 women 29 years ago in Montreal, he came from a home with domestic violence, extreme domestic violence, and he was also abused by his dad. Are there any more questions?
Deputy Mayor Wright?
Thank you very much. Thank you, Joachim, for your presentation. And as you're well aware, the Zonda Club of Owen Sound will be taking part in the 16 days of activism as well. And we will be raising the flag at City down at the Bay Shore, I believe. Pole, I don't think is ready here yet. No, so we'll be doing it on Monday, the 26th at 9 in the morning. And we would certainly like to have you and your group down there to support us in the raising of this flag. And this also is in beginning our 16-week days of activism against violence against women.
Very good.
Yeah.
I'm really happy about that. So that's on the 20th of...
I believe that out of 169 clubs in the world,
Yeah.
ours is the only club, I believe, that gets to raise the flag on the city flagpole.
November 25th, right?
26th?
26th?
It's November 26th
Okay.
at 9 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, everybody
And
got
the
it.
public is invited. We'll have a
Okay.
little ceremony down there.
Great, let's meet there.
Thank you. And then your remembrance is December 6th.
December
in City
6th,
Hall
yeah.
here.
And would you mind if I read the names of the 14 women at this point? Do we have enough time? The 14 women of Montreal? Can I read them?
Go ahead.
Geneviève Bergeron, Hélène Courgan, Nathalie Cranton, Barbara Degnon, Anne-Marie Edward, Maud Havernick, Barbara Marie Klusnik, Maryse Laganière, Maryse Leclerc, Anne-Marie Lemay, Sonia Pelletier, Michel Richard, Annie Saint-Arnaud, and Annie Turcotte. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I have some posters here which I leave with you,
Okay.
at least of you.
I want to thank Joachim for the work that he's done with the men's program. I understand he's planning his retirement to slow down a little bit. I know from being a criminal lawyer all the work that he's done with the clients that I've had over the years, and he's done great work with great people, and certainly appreciate what you've done for your community, and including this event annually. So thank you. Thanks. Public question period. If there's any questions from the public that get you come up, state your name, ask your question.
Hi, Peter Reed. Last council meeting, I asked about who would be paying for the parking on First Avenue West, and was told an agreement is a long way off. I pointed out that using DIA funds to pay city expenses outside the mandated area was questionable, at least. With the DIA membership voting in less than 48 hours, does the city know what the DIA is paying for yet?
Mr. Ritchie?
Thank you, Your Worship. Certainly, there is a DIA meeting on Wednesday night. The membership, I believe the board will be putting forward a proposal on paid parking or business-sponsored parking. Certainly, the board's aware of all the facts that they need to make that decision. I will be at that meeting. I'd be happy to answer any questions that evening in front of the entire DIA membership.
Time and place of that meeting?
At the Bay Shore, 7 o'clock Wednesday night.
Thank you. Thank you.
And a quick, well, I'll let the other one go because I was going to ask about the administration costs, but you're saying that's going to be covered tomorrow night. According to the DIA minutes being presented tonight, the city requested, and the DIA complied, that the DIA pay the city for free skating. Is this what we can expect of the new DIA-city relationship, using the funds to pay for things outside of the DIA area?
Anybody know about skating? Councillor O'Leary?
I can tell you that we've paid, the DIA has paid for free skating every year I've been on the DIA, 4 years.
Outside of the area?
Yep.
And you feel that follows within the mandate?
It's just been the same sponsorship.
Okay, it's a historical, doesn't make it right. Thank you.
Thank you. We have number 11, no correspondence received, which we have to consider. Number 12, reports from staff, community planner, with regard to 18th Street East.
Thank you, Worship. This is an application for site plan approval submitted by GM Demert on behalf of a numbered company for lands located at 297 18th Street East. The property is an L-shaped property with frontage on 2nd Avenue East, 18th Street, as well as 3rd Avenue. 3rd Avenue is a county road. There's sidewalks located on each of the streets. The site has been vacant for some time. The proposal is a 6-story building with parking on the main level with 39 residential units on floors 2 through 6. Also on the second floor is a small office as well as common amenity space for the apartments. The units are a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom with 25% being fully accessible. There are 2 entrances proposed to the site, one from 2nd Avenue and also one from 3rd Avenue. Each lead to a small parking area, each with 12 spaces with a one-way driving connection between the 2. A significant amount of supporting information has been submitted with the applications, including site and landscaping plans, stormwater and servicing, as well as an urban design study. In terms of the provincial policy statement, this multi-residential development on full services within a settlement area represents the type of infill development supported by the provincial policy statement for the development of strong communities. In terms of the city's official plan, the site is designated waterfront mixed use, and the plan contemplates a broad array of uses in a compact form at higher densities. Medium to high density residential uses, alone or in combination with other uses, are permitted. The proposal achieves the policies of the official plan regarding intensification and infill. The site has been vacant for some time. However, the previous uses have created a brownfield situation, and a record of site condition will be required. In terms of the zoning, the site is zoned mixed-use commercial. It permits, among other things, dwelling units in combination with permitted non-residential uses. A detailed zoning conformity check has been completed, and the site does comply with all site and building regulations. A road widening is recommended by our Engineering Services Division on the 3rd Avenue or County Road side. There are special provisions in the zoning bylaw where the road widening is necessary. In this case, the road widening will result in a condition where the footing for the building is partially within the right-of-way, not the traveled portion, but in the 30-meter right-of-way, and an encroachment agreement is required to address this condition, and Council will see that as a recommended condition of approval. In terms of alternative transportation, I mentioned there's sidewalks on all streets. The building's well connected with pedestrian pathways and sidewalks to the building. There is a bench located on those routes. It's very close to trails and bike routes and on an existing bus route. In terms of parking, 51 spaces are required, including 3 barrier-free, and there's 54 provided, including 3 barrier-free. The site is attractively landscaped, including fence buffers to the adjacent residential uses to the south, as well as green landscaping along those edges. I mentioned an urban design study has been submitted. That study recommended that the building be located close to the 18th and 2nd Avenue street frontage. That the residential uses be elevated so that the views were beyond the areas of parking, sort of to the landscape beyond, that the building would be situated to conceal parking in behind, and that the views from the units be directed away from the residential units that are lower in form. There was also a shadowing study to confirm that there wouldn't be a negative impact from the building on the adjacent residential uses. there will be provisions with respect to those urban design provisions in the site plan agreement. In terms of site servicing, stormwater management is acceptable. The servicing, there's lots of capacity in terms of sewer and water to service this site. There is a private sanitary lateral that unfortunately runs across this private property, and the developer has proposed a realignment. Ultimately, with the road widening, part of the sanitary sewer will be in the widened right-of-way, but part of it will be on private property, and an easement agreement is required to address that. So the city's contribution to the relocation of that sanitary sewer that serves a number of other properties is $50,000. I mentioned that a record of site condition is required to comply with the Environmental Protection Act. The developer asked the development team to consider an approach that would allow work to commence on the property before the record of site condition was completed. As council's aware, a building permit requires that all applicable law be adhered to. So you can see that they've started to remediate the site. There's a large excavation on the property. However, where the sanitary laterals running through the site, the soil and the sanitary sewer remain, and they have that area yet to remediate. So we're recommending, similar to an approach we've taken on another property, where the site plan agreement would include clauses whereby we would allow the CBO to issue a conditional building permit, where there would be no occupancy until the testing is clear and the record has been filed with the ministry, but it would allow during that time between filing and the acknowledgement of the ministry for them to continue. So the risk is on the developer, and that's recommended as a condition of site plan approval. So, Your Worship, the recommendation is that council would approve the site plan subject to the 3 conditions outlined, that you would authorize a bylaw to allow the mayor and clerk to execute a site plan agreement, that council would authorize a bylaw allowing the mayor and clerk to execute the servicing agreement, that you would authorize a bylaw to allow all the documents necessary for the road widening to be signed. You would authorize a permanent encroachment for the footings of the building and a 6-month encroachment agreement for other at-grade features, including 2 parking spaces that would be within that road allowance, and the easement agreement to provide access over that sanitary sewer.
Good, thank you. Councilor McManaman, you moving that? Yeah, Your Worship. Lucky guess. Questions? Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to the director, is this a rental unit or will they be condos?
Through Your Worship, I understand it will be rental accommodation.
Thank you. Other questions? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 12B, report from purchasing agent.
Thank you, Your Worship. Regarding this matter, the city is exercising its right under the original agreement and proposal from GM Blue Plan to retain them for additional phases of the project in question. The reason we are exercising this right is directly related to the timeliness of doing so, as it relates to ensuring the detailed design, tendering, and award of the project will allow the successful contractor ample time to complete the project before major work starts on the 10th Street Bridge. So by doing so now, we hopefully have the detailed design ready to go if they're successful and you allow us to award this contract to GM Blue Plan and have the tendering done early in 2019, which in subsequent to that will allow the contractor to start, successful contractor to start in April. And we expect anywhere from 16 to 20 weeks to complete the project.
Good. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Wright.
Thank you very much. I will move that recommendation.
Questions, discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Consent agenda.
Through Your Worship, on the consent agenda this evening is a planning notice from Georgian Bluffs and a flag flying request from Zonta of Owen Sound. There are minutes for receipt from the Library Board, DIA, Police Board, Owen Sound Municipal Nonprofit Housing Corporation, and the Grace Sable Conservation Authority. Sisters Cafe, located in the Rec Center, received its business license, and there is correspondence presented for the information of council. A full listing is available at 13J.
Good, thank you. Councilor O'Leary.
Moved by myself that City Council receives items 13A to 13J on the consent agenda dated November 19th, 2018.
Call the question first. All in favor? That is carried. Anything that we need to discuss out of those minutes that's jumping out? Seeing none, thank you. Down to number 14. Oh, you were going? Sorry, go ahead. You gotta be quick.
Yes, thanks. I did have, well, one of my questions on the DIA minutes just got answered. I had two things highlighted. I'm just wondering why there was a tabling motion for more information as it pertained to the parking discussion. There was a request for more information, and then there was a motion to table that. So I'm just wondering why would it be tabled when you could get more information?
The motion that was on the table was actually turning it all down. And I just asked to have it tabled so that we could still do exactly what they were looking for without turning it down. So we still went about our business looking at other municipalities to see what they were doing about parking and got the necessary information.
Done? Done. Seeing no others. Okay, 14A, minutes of accessibility advisory committee. Councillor Lemon.
Thank you, Your Worship. We had the great pleasure of approving a site plan, which is one of the functions of that committee. It's really interesting to see what the City Hall has done in terms of accessibility. As an example, the emergency buttons in the washrooms, in case someone has a problem in there, they can press that and help will come. I really think this building is much more accessible, and the elevator actually works without jerking you around. I was really curious exactly how you were going to do the rear entrance, and that's rather neat. I'm finding my way around the building. I will probably get lost a few times. I'm sure some people have. But this is an example of accessibility. And the good thing is it makes it better for everyone. And it's one of the things we have to look at going ahead to make our city as accessible as possible. And certainly the downtown, that's a key issue.
So with that, you're moving approval of the minutes of accessibility of October 29th, 2018?
I am.
Good. Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. 14B, minutes from the Tom Thompson Art Gallery Advisory Committee.
Thanks, Your Worship. It was business as usual. We continue with our community outreach process, gathering information from members of the community on how they'd like to see us move forward with the new advisory committee. We did have a bit of good news from the Director of Corporate Services, who reported that less money had to be paid back on one of the grants we were paying back, and therefore $76,000 is being applied to the gallery's deficit this year instead of the committed $50,000. So that was a bit of good news there. We will be moving into setting up some subcommittees later on this month, a fundraising committee and a volunteer recruitment committee. And one other issue of note, there may be some hockey fans in Owen Sound, I'm not entirely sure, but coming up on December 7th, we have an excellent exhibit called Saving Face, Art in Front of the Hockey Net, and that includes goalie masks from all over the place, including quite a collection from Curtis Sanford, who many will know played for the Platers and then moved on to many NHL teams. So we're all looking forward to that. And with that, Your Worship, I'll move these minutes.
Thank you. Questions? None. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So we're down to 15, matters postponed, and I'm aware of none. 16, notices, motions for which notice was previously given, and we are aware of none. Additional business. Pam, you're going first? Or Brianna? Which?
Thank you, Worship. Just a reminder that this Saturday, Council invites members of the public, committee members, and volunteers to join them as they reopen City Hall. So the open house begins at 1 p.m. through 4 p.m., and there'll be comments and official ribbon cutting at 2 p.m. All are welcome.
Thank you. Councillor Thomas?
Thanks, Your Worship. Some people in Owen Sound may remember that during the Second World War, a group of Polish soldiers trained here in Owen Sound, and this coming Saturday, there's going to be an interesting ceremony in Queen's Park. The Consul General of Poland will be presenting a plaque to the citizens of Owen Sound to express his gratitude to the city of Owen Sound for its generous hospitality to the officers and soldiers who came to Canada during the Second World War and were trained in Owen Sound. So that's at 11 o'clock on Saturday morning, and I would invite everyone to come down. It's going to be a pretty special occasion. Thank you.
Good. I think Councillor Lemon maybe has a question. Go ahead.
Your Worship, I was just asking if that had gone to the Legion.
I don't know. It just came to me today, but we can certainly make sure they have it tomorrow.
If you could, because I think the presence there. Because, and you might inform Georgian Bluffs, because the Polish troops trained at Camp Sarawak.
Okay, thank you.
If I could, Your Worship, I know the Legion Colour Party will be there, so I'm sure they must be.
Oh, okay, then they're aware, because I didn't see it on their list at our last meeting. It must have been added after that. Thank you.
So that's, I guess that's all the other business. We can go home now. Brianna, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have several vacancies on our city boards and committees, and the deadline to apply is December 7th, and all the information is available on our website. Our next council meeting on December 3rd will be at the Roxy Theatre at 7 p.m. Blue Water Chorus of Sweet Adelines will be sharing their musical talent. The new council will be completing the declaration of office, and there will be a short council meeting with a reception to follow. The event is free and open to the public.
Good, thank you. If you don't mind, I think I'm going to go down to the other microphone, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. So, Council, here we are already. The end of 2014 council term has come to an end. It was 4 very quick years, and to quote Kermit the Frog, the great philosopher, time spun when you're having flies. Really has gone by quickly, and together as a council, we have, and with the positive support of our community, we have dealt with a lot of issues. I made a list, and I had 50 things that I'll try and cut down to 49. We completed our strategic plan. We completed a service review of city operations to find approximately $880,000 in savings. We waived approximately $175,000 in fees to ensure that Chapman House Hospice was built in Owen Sound. The long overdue upgrades at Harrison Park were completed, replacing the pool, doing a lot of work around the campground, making washrooms, making the pool all accessible. We completed Ryerson Park, downtown park that needed refurbishment. We completed the skateboard park, skateboard and bike park, very much with thanks to the sponsors of the Kiwanis Club that made it work. We completed new accessible washrooms at Kelso Park, also accessible with partners the Order of Good Cheer. We updated the park's master plan. We loaned funds to Owen Sound Housing Corp., whichever company it was, to ensure that they could get a start on the 28 new affordable houses, with 8 more, I think, going in right now. I noticed they're being built when I went past the other day. We kept the downtown bus terminal open by leasing out part of the building, and we brought Greyhound back down to the terminal. We met with the Minister of Municipal Affairs to seek financial help after weeks and weeks and weeks of frozen pipes, which ended up costing the city over $2 million to repair. We weren't successful. Frozen pipes were a huge stress for all of us as councillors. And it was a wonderful example of how our community comes together to help each other, how people looked after getting their friends over for dinner, doing laundry, doing all those things that made it work while we were trying to figure out how to get the pipes thawed. We met with the Minister of Labour 3 times to seek changes in interest arbitration legislation, and it appears that it is happening now with the new government. We dealt with a home being destroyed on 8th Street after the hill collapsed during the construction of 8th Street. We had 2 terrible nights of arsons in our community, and this was the second, really the biggest example of how our community came together to help each other. Very impressive. Nothing to do with us, it's everything to do with the community. We successfully lobbied the Minister of Transportation for funding to rebuild the 100-plus-year-old 10th Street Bridge. And for our sins, we got our grants, and we'll deal with that in the next couple of years. In partnership with Grey County, we've renewed the pipes and the road on 3rd Avenue East. Last year, this year, will continue next year. We continue to lower the tax ratios on industrial and commercial property to help retain our established manufacturers to be more competitive to attract new employers. This was started years ago and has continued. Wayne and I were over in Barrie the other day, and we talked to Brotec, which is one of the companies coming to supply Bruce Power. One of their comments was that Owen Sound's taxes were cheaper than Barrie's. It's pretty nice to hear that message. Development process was streamlined. Development team is sitting down with new people coming in that are coming in, developers coming in with new projects to try and meet with them all at once and get them going. We waived development charges on residential lots, resulting in an increase in new home builds and construction values and jobs. We front-ended the cost of Sydenham Heights water and sewer to facilitate the East Hill development for decades to come. This is just building on something that has been built on going back to probably, I think Ovid was probably the mayor in 1984 when they bought or took over Sydenham property to build the hospital up there. It was before 1984. Well, it would have been about 1984 because I guess the hospital opened in 86. The property has been there. We're moving it ahead by putting in the services, adding to what's been done before. We approved an upgrade to the East Bayshore Pump Station to facilitate development of residential lots in the northeast corner of the city, around the old RCA. We went through negotiations with Transport Canada for harbour divestiture and could not reach an agreement that made sense for the taxpayers of Owen Sound. We obtained an OPP costing and have a cost benchmark to work towards. We dealt with the deteriorating City Hall. We did the RU Most campaign to try and attract new, young entrepreneurs. We completed the downtown revitalization review to enhance our downtown. Richard worked very hard on that, as did all of the Economic Development Committee and DIA with provincial funding. River Precinct was approved to open up parkland and enhance parkland from 8th Street all the way to the harbor to make our downtown more beautiful, to attract more people to our core. We welcomed a number of provincial cabinet ministers, federal cabinet ministers, governor generals, lieutenant governor to our city. We saw new businesses open, the Artist Co-op expanding downtown, Princess Auto, PetSmart, Sleep Country, Giant Tiger, Urban Planner, etc. Completed and opened the wastewater treatment upgrade program that Jim probably dealt with for all 16 years. We hosted this big yellow thing in the harbor that everyone thought we were crazy and attracted hundreds of thousands of people together to celebrate Canada 150. We've added bottle refilling stations to municipal buildings as a first step to move towards less single-use plastic. Little by little, we're going to have to add to that going forward and get it completed. We increased our new building permits for new residential units from 1 in 2014 to 91 by 2017. Draft plans of subdivision rezoning approvals represented over 750 dwelling units. This one's my favorite that I've written down. Council worked together to find consensus on issues to move the business of the city forward. And I go back to that special meeting in an afternoon about development charges. and how we came together. We did finish the 8th Street Hill after the slide. We gave keys to the city to two of our Olympians, Larissa Urquhart and Jason Crone. That was a pretty special moment. Modernized our flag flying policy and added a community flag that will be outside of City Hall by the time we're done. We've improved our relationship with our municipal neighbors, Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, with our Chamber of Commerce that was frayed. Under business retention and expansion, we have plant expansions at Belwick Packaging and at McLean Engineering that are going to add a lot of jobs to Owen Sound in addition to the jobs that are there already. Bruce Power Supplier BWXT is established. Bruce Power Supplier Brotec is established. Unfortunately, we've lost Tenneco, and it hopefully opens up opportunities with regard to a building and with a labor force that we know that Bruce Power is going to need over the next number of years. So that's a short list. On my behalf, I want to thank this council that I've had the honor and the pleasure to work with. We've all shared one goal, and that is to act and do what is best for our community. We've each brought different talents, experiences, and personalities that have complemented those traits of our others around us. Thank you all for backing me. Thank you all for backing each other. On behalf of this council, together, we want to thank our families who have put up with us when we come home tired, frustrated, been personally attacked, and we go home and we rant. It's our spouses and our family that have to put up with us when we're wound up and we can't make those comments publicly. It is not easy being a spouse or a child of a counselor. Sometimes you get asked questions that you're expected to answer, and you didn't vote on it, you didn't read the report, and you don't know how to answer, and we thank our families for putting up with us. Without you looking after us, we wouldn't have the ability to come and do what we do. The cold dinners that are in tinfoil on the counter, changing schedules, last-minute invites to something that we forgot to tell you and thought that you knew already. That's mine. Badly. We as families have passed up opportunities to be doing other fun things, to be doing city work, sometimes on a Saturday morning, sometimes a Saturday afternoon, and many evenings in between. Sometimes it's our spouses that are taking our kids to hockey games, music practices, and things because we're busy. And we wouldn't be able to do that work without the support of our family, and we're very appreciative. On behalf of this council, I also want to thank city staff. We have pushed our times at staff to the limits with our goals and policy directions in the last 4 years. Many of the things we have done are in addition to daily routine things that they have to do every day, which are not necessarily obvious to the general public that don't see what staff do. Sometimes they're not obvious to us what the staff has to continue to do while we're piling on the newest, best idea. While we're elected to represent the community and to oversee the administration of city business, we're sometimes accused of protecting our staff. We do this because we see what goes on every day and we appreciate it. We thank staff for carrying on our policies and supporting our council over the past 4 years. Staff should never be accused in the public for carrying through the policies that we have set and have their integrity questioned, have their personal lives questioned. We set the policies, staff carries them out, and we thank you for doing what you do and putting up with some of those things that happen. Lastly, well, not lastly, I want to thank our community for giving the 9 of us the opportunity over the past 4 years. Owen Sound is a great place to live. We all know it. There's a lot of positive things going on in this community. We thank those in our community who work together to celebrate our great city's positives, and we thank you for helping us tell the world. Now, finally, I can't help but think of the continuity of individual counselors as skills and techniques are passed down from one counselor to another. As we're about to hear, Peter, Arlene, and Jim learned from others before them. We have all learned so much from the 3 of you. We as counselors going forward will be able to draw on what you have taught us You're probably going to be getting phone calls, probably multiple phone calls from multiple numbers of us going forward, running ideas past you. We as council going forward cannot thank the three of you enough for the standard that you have set for us and allowed us to learn from you and try and reach that standard that you've provided. So let me be the first to say on behalf of this council, on behalf of our Owen Sound community, thank you for guiding the city over the past many, many years, both here at council and your volunteer years that you put on long before you ever got to council. And I'm sure years going into the future that you'll continue to volunteer. And specifically for guiding this council over the last 4 years. You'll be greatly missed. Thank you, guys. Brianna, how much Kleenex did you hand out? You doing the next part, or? No, I am, okay. Sure. So first of all, we'd like to recognize Councillor Lemon for what in total is 25 years, over 26 years? 26? So there's probably a button that I'm supposed to know what to push.
Good evening. I'm pleased to be here tonight to recognize Councillor Peter Lemon for his many years of service as a councillor for the City of Owen Sound. I first met citizen Peter Lemon when he inhabited my office almost 2 decades ago, when I first became city manager for the city. At that time, he came in for a chat, we went for lunch, and then I inexplicably found that I had mislaid my credit card. Councillor Lemon paid, and that is something that he remembered for the next decade or probably more. When Councillor Lemon was first elected to council, he was always a great supporter of the big projects, the transformational projects, those that would move the city forward. Projects such as the Big Dig, projects such as the restoration and rehabilitation of the Harry Lumley Bayshore Community Centre. But it was in the smaller projects that I recognized Peter's true value. Projects that he supported, such as the restoration of the Tiffany glass in the old historic mausoleum, or the repair to the library ceiling in the Carnegie Library, both beautiful creations. I also remember Peter particularly for 2 key projects. One was the evocative memorial to the Underground Railroad and Black History Month in Harrison Park. And the second was when Peter came to see me and he brought out a photograph, probably from his basement, of the old Noma lights on the main street. Those lights, he said, were built in Owen Sound, and there was a beautiful creation on the main street. And he said to us, could we recreate that? And everybody looked on in stunned silence. But we did, and it's now a unique feature of the Festival of Northern Lights. Peter Lemon, he could be creative, he could be fanciful, he could be annoying at times, frustrated at times, and brilliant at times, all in one package. But there is one thing about Peter that we all remember. One thing which I think we all know. We all know that Councillor Lemon always had the interests of the city at Owen Sound at heart. Thank you, Peter. Thank you for your service to the city. And thank you for all that you have done on behalf of all of us. Thanks.
I failed to mention, that was Craig Curtis, of course, our former city manager, who is now in Red Deer. He must like, Ruth, he must like the wooden walling. I don't know that siding in the office. So I have a couple things to present here. One is a long-standing service award for 25 years presented to Peter Lemon on behalf of the Government of Ontario. Thank you for outstanding work in helping to build a strong communities in Ontario. Congratulations and best wishes for the future. It's signed by the Honourable Steve Clark and Minister. The Honourable William Walker is not able to attend tonight and sends his best wishes. So I'll bring this up to you. So I have a plaque here. There we go. After City thanking you for your 25 years. 28 years, you're right. There we go.
It's kind of a shifting number, isn't it?
We were both Owen Sounders, but we didn't come up with enough fingers to count on. Can you imagine?
Together we have enough.
Congratulations and thank you.
I would like to make a few comments. Craig Curtis mentioned the lunch that I ended up paying for. And trust me, he paid for that many, many times over. I would mention it regularly. But I shared with Craig a love of moving ahead. And that's what this council has done. Because to me, a city is like a tree. If it's not growing, it's dying. And we have seen some initiatives. We as a community have been blessed by people, some of whom are sitting in this audience tonight, who have moved the city ahead. As an example, Dick Hibna's over there, conservation, push, push, push. Thank God, because we have to preserve the environment. Ann Kelly, who I started with for a number of years, and have a lot of, she had a committee that had the best attendance record, Festival of Northern Lights. There was bribery involved, folks, and baking. And I remember one time she phoned me, and she didn't say, "Hi, it's Ann." She said, "Date squares." Now, if that wasn't a bribe, I don't know what was. But we moved ahead. And also Ruth Lovell, we moved ahead. And that's what you have to do. I've enjoyed my time in council greatly. I've learned a lot. I've been involved. And I've met some really wonderful people. People who care about people. People who care about the environment. People who care about the future. And you know what? Quite often, all of those are gathered together in one person. Thank heavens. I am going to miss Monday nights and committees, but I am putting forth my name to be on some committees. Surprise, surprise. I care about certain things very intensely. One of the biggest achievements in the long term of my career was providing the initiative to start municipal nonprofit housing. We've built, we're now up to over 200, I think it's 228 units, with more coming. We pay $500,000 in taxes to the city, which Wayne smiles about and gratefully receives. and deposits in the bank. But more importantly, we have provided years and years and years of safe, affordable housing. And now we're providing a very, very accessible housing. And we are the first housing that anyone knows of that has actually put in scooter garages, because a lot of people who are disabled use scooters. How you look after the least among us is a real picture of what kind of healthy community you have. The more you care about people, the stronger your community. I believe that is the fundamental truth. I want to thank everyone around this table, both staff and elected people. This last 4 years of council has been one of the best 4 years that we've had in some time. It's been a cohesive group working together. And when committees and councils work together, you achieve a lot. And that's been one of the gifts we've had with nonprofit housing, is we've had a board that's a team working to a common objective, all coming at it from different angles, but after the same goal, and that's success. I want to also thank my wife for putting up with council, calls during meals, me forgetting to tell her about things. I wish you really hadn't mentioned that, Mayor, because I'm guilty, very guilty. But it's true. I'm the one who got elected councillor. She paid part of the price for that. And I can remember years ago our daughter asking me if I knew everybody in Owen Sound, because we walked down the main street and I talked to She said 15 people. I think it was closer to maybe 10, 11, maybe 14, but anyway. And I am not going to disappear off the face of the earth. I care about this community and will continue to care. And thank you from my bottom of my heart. I also appreciate having Craig Curtis comment. Craig did a lot of good for this city and made it the cultural capital that it deserves to be because of the arts community, which is so wide and varied, and what has been achieved with the Tom Thompson. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you, Peter. I'd now like to call our former mayor, Ruth Lovell-Stanners, to the microphone.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was very honored to be asked to do what I'm about to do now, Arlene. And I thank you for having the opportunity. And tonight, after serving 16 years on the Owen Sound City Council, Deputy Mayor Arlene Wright is saying goodbye, and the residents of the city of Owen Sound celebrate with council the contributions and achievements of this remarkable woman. And together, we will have an opportunity to say a heartfelt thank you for all those years of service. Arlene has served under 3 mayors, served with 14 different councillors, and 4 city managers. I had the privilege of being one of the mayors Arlene worked with. On election night this year, that was the second night, I was on a panel at Rogers TV with 2 outgoing mayors of neighboring municipalities. the three of us spoke about the need to have a true friend on our council. Someone who would listen, give sound advice and thoughtful advice, and would have our back, as the expression goes. That night, I said that Arlene was that person for me. Besides being a personal friend and confidant, Arlene was an exceptionally astute and dedicated counselor. She was always calm, steady, and full of common sense. She always returned phone calls from residents, would meet with anyone who wanted to meet with her, and she would listen. She relished good, lively discussion and found satisfaction in seeing things come together after community outpourings, such as with the rec center and the preservation of the Waterfront Museum. Anyone who has been watching council knows that Arlene only spoke when she had a point to make, clearly and with no grandstanding. And she did her background work. Owen Sound congratulated Arlene on being elected the first warden of Grey County from this city. As she has done with her city council, Arlene won the well-deserved respect from her fellow county councillors and in fact was elected for a second term. Arlene also earned the respect and loyalty of the staff in both the city and the county. She truly appreciated staff's knowledge and experience, and she consulted them when problems arose and worked with them to solve those problems. And she was the first to acknowledge and thank staff when the outcomes were good. What the public is not always aware of when they watch the council at work is that each council member has a personal life with its own ups and downs. During Arlene's term, Arlene lost the true love of her life, her husband Gary. He was her best friend, her biggest supporter, and most loyal and adoring fan, as she was his. Arlene was able to carry through those days of grief with the strength and commitment we had to come to expect of her. There have been happy times too, weddings of grandchildren, births of great-grandchildren who call her Gigi, interesting travel and adventures, and a move to a lovely condo. Arlene, people will tell you that you now will have the time to enjoy all that. Well, let me tell you, you won't. You will continue to be involved and to work in any way you can to make this community a better place to live. I know you well enough to say that with certainty. On behalf of mayors, councillors, and staff, past and present, on behalf of the people of Owen Sound and Grey County, thank you, Arlene. And may the next chapter be happy, healthy, and fulfilling. I look forward to hearing what you will do next. Thank you, my friend.
No, I'm not. I want to see everybody. Thank you. Ian, you couldn't have found anybody any better to come and say farewell to me. Ruth, I made a friend of Ruth many years ago, and as you said, we served on council together, and she's a friend for life, and that's what it's all about. But I thought, because it's such an emotional night, I better write down what I want to say, or I might go on. But the years go by pretty quickly, don't they? I have to tell you, when I got off the elevator tonight after being down at an in-camera meeting, the first person I saw was my daughter from Caledon, and I just about went back in the elevator because it was such a shock. And then I find out my entire family has come, and I just can't tell you how much it means to me to have them all here tonight. So it's pretty wonderful. And friends and county friends that have come. It's just incredible. And my Zonta friends that have come. It's a wonderful feeling. What a term that this council has had, though, this 4 years. Over the years, I have met many members of council. I've worked with many good people. Mayors, councillors, city managers, and staff. I have some favorites from the past, and they know who they are without me having to mention their names. But this last council saw council work together as a team. We disagreed on things, but then we worked together to find a solution. Mayor Boddy kept us all informed along the way, so there were no surprises. We all helped each other, and the result has been good decisions being made and progress for the city. We've had great staff that has worked with us, staff that has advised us but not told us, staff that has listened to our concerns and our wishes and done accordingly to what we have thought we would like to see. I sincerely hope that the 2018-2022 council will have the same success that this council has had. I have met many people throughout these years and made many friends that will go on forever. Just wonderful people. Some of these friendships are a result of just a telephone conversation I've had about city business. Somebody will call me up and we keep talking, and they'll call me again, inform me on something else, and not very long you find out you're sitting having a cup of coffee with that person, and that person becomes a good friend. It's an interesting way to meet people, I'll tell you, if anybody. I want to thank the people who have stood by me over the years, regardless of decisions I have made, and that's my family. I owe a lot to my family and to my many friends. My friends have been very understanding of things I've had to do, and without their support, it would be impossible to be a public figure. I was honored to serve on Grey County Council as a city representative, and I thank the citizens of Owen Sound for their support over the years. It has been very much appreciated. Now, a year ago, a good friend of mine gave me a little gift. And he said to me, you might want to use these in a year or so. So now I'm going to don my rose-colored glasses and I'm going to go out and face retirement with a smile. Thank you. It's been a slice.
How are you going to follow that, Jim? Now I want to call Dick Hibma, former councillor.
Trying to rearrange the furniture here. I'm going to begin by saying thank you to Councillor Lemon for your kind words in regards to our past service together. And then I'm going to start with the main thrust of my words tonight, and that's to tell you that I am deeply honored to be asked to speak to your time on council and to be part of this presentation, Councillor Jim McManaman. Since November 2003, There is an impressive list of projects that have been completed, and you've heard from Mayor Boddy a fairly significant list. And I'm sure you'll reflect on some of those if they give you the opportunity. Many of these projects speak to partnerships that were developed or continue even now, and those partnerships are essential in getting anything done at any level. But more significantly to me, these projects, along with continuous week-to-week governance over these past 15 years, speak to the type of person you are and the type of counselor you have been. You have demonstrated that you're a man of vision, of what a better Owen Sound can be. You've demonstrated that you are a person who listens carefully to your constituents, as well as seeking out the advice of experts and experienced personnel. And you also consider carefully the reports and recommendations from city staff. Most impressive to me, though, is the work ethic that you brought to the role of counselor. The countless hours of preparation, diligent preparation, I might add, all of the homework that went into your attendance in meetings, the innumerable meetings, and all of the appointments that aren't part of the regular role that seem to fill in the calendar for you. The work ethic you displayed through all that is truly breathtaking. And all of this while being a son, a brother, a husband, a dad, an uncle, a coach, a team manager, league executive, and a full-time firefighter in a community 2+ hours away. It boggles my mind, and I know I had a fairly active lifestyle while I was here, and I can't imagine how you did it all. But it's that drive, that passion, and that work ethic that you brought to it. I know that band of brothers that you have would have done their utmost to keep you humble and grounded. And I know that Kelly and the rest of your family have been tremendously supportive of you throughout all of this time. And I also know that it requires a great deal of sacrifice on their part as well. Over the years, I've noted that you made the best decisions possible with the information available to you, regardless if it was popular in the coffee shops or the media, and for that I thank you. You'll know in the coming years how you will be judged by the number of times you're asked to throw your hat back into the ring. If they're not asking, you can interpret that yourself. But there is much wisdom in realizing that in your own life, there is a time for every purpose, a time to serve, and a time to step away and let others serve. I believe I speak for all of us assembled here and the citizens and ratepayers of Owen Sound when I say we commend you, Councillor Jim McManaman, for your outstanding service to the people of your community. We are most grateful to both you and your family for all you have done for us. Thank you.
So Arlene, I'm not as brave as you, so I'm not going to face the crowd. I promised Travis I'd get through this, and I'll do my, there you go, I'll do my best. Thank you, Dick, for those kind words. Coming from a man like you, boy, they really hit home. Arlene, I want to start with you if I could. The city rejoined the county in 2001, and many people worked very hard to make that transition work.
and they deserve a lot of credit for what has gone on over the last 17 years, I guess. But I think Owen Sound truly became part of the county because of you. That's when we became part of the county. Your service there, you made the partnership work there. It took a long time to get it to mesh. I think it's meshing now, and a lot of that is through your efforts, and you should be very proud of that service. Peter, fair to say that I think out of all those years, Peter and I probably disagreed the most over many issues, had the most arguments. And I'll never forget the first one, Peter. I was a new councillor, and I don't remember the topic, but I certainly remember the outcome. We were arguing about something back and forth, and it got pretty heated, as it's been known to do with you and I, Peter. And anyway, whatever the vote was, whatever happened, I don't know. And at the end, Peter comes walking over to me, and I thought, this is my first, I've been on council for about a week, and I thought, here we go. And Peter came over and asked me something completely nothing to do with what we'd just been arguing about, a completely different topic, completely different issue. Wanted to talk about a meeting that was coming up, what are we going to do? And at the end of it, I learned a valuable lesson there. And the lesson, and I hope the new council takes that lesson as well, is that there'll be many issues, there'll be lots of, every meeting there's issues, and there'll be arguments and discussions, and at the end of it, a decision is made, that's democracy, and you move on. You have to move on because the next issue is coming right down the track, and if you don't move on, you'll never get anything accomplished. So, Peter, thank you for that lesson. Again, Dick, I thank you for those kind words, but I'm left with the overwhelming feeling, people thanking me, that I should be thanking all of you. I am very proud of the accomplishments I've had and the different projects, but I was only one piece of it. None of that would have happened without the true partnership of many, many people. And those are the people I want to focus on or thank tonight. I'll start with the different committees I served on, the volunteer committees over all those years. I figure I've served with about over 100 citizens, public volunteer citizens. Some are here tonight. In the early years was people like, you're not supposed to name names, but there are some names that stand out. In the early years, people like Glenn Beller or Sam Luckhart, and currently there's people like Christine Farrell and Paul Foster and Ken Thompson with housing, and Donald Anderson, and even Bill King's here tonight, and Fred Livingston and Ray McKelvey, and I'm just using those names to say that first of all, we're asking for people for volunteer committees. Don't forget to get your application into Brianna, but. To say that those people, those volunteer committee members are making a difference in their community, that we meet monthly, sometimes twice a month, and they are there every meeting making a difference. And I want to thank them for all the work over the last 15, 20 years, I guess, I've been on committees, all those volunteers. I want to thank the media, both past and present. In particular, Denis Langlois with the Sun-Times, who's covered council now for almost 12 years. But in this day and age, when there's lots of talk of fake news and people are putting down the media, all I can say is I was always treated very fairly by the media. I didn't always like all their stories, but I can't say they weren't fair. And I think that's probably the biggest praise you can give to a journalist. I want to thank city staff, both past and present. The city is really blessed with some very, very intelligent, hardworking, dedicated men and women who are working for all of us. A council might set the direction, but they're the people in the trenches, day in and day out, moving the ball forward, doing the heavy lifting. And I know at maybe a budget meeting or something, you'd finish a report, and then you'd say, are there any questions? And I'd raise my hand, and your eyes would start to roll. And I'd say, I just had 12 quick questions about your report. But anyway, I just want to thank, I apologize for all the dumb questions, and I want to thank staff for all they do. I want to thank the council members, both past and present. I've served with 17 different people on council. You all brought your own unique experiences and talents to the table. We had many highs, we had a few lows, but I think we accomplished a lot collectively. And I guess I'd say I'm proud to call a number of you my friends. I want to thank my family, of course. Peter, I'm going to steal one of your lines. I actually wrote it down. We got elected, but they paid part of the price. My mother, my brothers, my sisters-in-laws, my nieces and nephews. Public life can be challenging for a councillor. It probably more so for your family, especially when you're sitting around and someone starts talking about those idiots on council and your son or your brother is one of those idiots. It's not always easy. As was said, you get asked questions for decisions that you had nothing to do with and you don't even know anything about, and you're left defending them. But thank you for all your support when I couldn't be there to pick somebody up from a soccer game or drop them off at a hockey game. Your support is very much appreciated. To my immediate family, my wife Kelly and my 3 children, Connor, Lucas, and Kate. This is my kids' first council meeting. Given their expressions, it's probably their last council meeting too. My kids have never known me not to be on council. I've always been on council their whole lives, so this is going to be interesting. A few years ago when Kate was asked at school, what does your dad do for a living? She answered, he goes to meetings. So then later, one of them said, what are meetings anyway? They asked Kelly, what are meetings anyway? And so she did her best to explain it, and they said, he finds that fun? I don't know if I found it. I guess I found it rewarding. Maybe that's the best way to put it. To Kelly, it was always funny in our early years, we'd be walking down the street and someone would stop me for a brief discussion on the finer points of sewage treatment. And Kelly would very politely stay and stand and watch and listen. And that got tired very quickly. And now, like last week, somebody stopped to ask me something. She just didn't even slow down. So I'll see you at home. I guess that's experience, isn't it? Saying thank you doesn't seem like enough. I guess I'll be able to help a little bit more with family life. I'm not a big one for quotes, but there were 2 quotes that I looked up and I thought were very appropriate. I'd like to dedicate this quote from Theodore Roosevelt to the members of the committees that I spoke of, to the past members and current members of council and senior city staff who I've worked with over the last 15 years. I updated the quote a little bit to make it more general neutral. It's about a 100-year-old quote, but from Theodore Roosevelt, it is not the critic who counts, not the person who points out how the strong man or woman stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done better. The credit belongs to the person who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short time and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actively strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, knows great devotion, who spends themselves in a worthy cause, who at their best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at their worst, if they fail, at least they fail while daring greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. When I read those words, I actually thought of many members of this group. And lastly, my last comments, I'd like to thank the members, thank the public, the general public, the citizens of Owen Sound. It has truly, I come from a background of service, and it has truly been an honor and a privilege to serve. My last quote from author A.A. Milne: how lucky I am to have something that makes saying goodbye so hard. Thank you all. Certainly could hardly speak. Thank you very much.
To the 3 of you, thank you. We again appreciate everything you've done to get us to this point, and sort of feel like children being pushed out the door, being pushed out of the nest to fly on. Thank you. Number 18, motion that the committee of the whole rise and report.
Moved by myself that the committee of the whole rise and report.
All in favor? That is carried, so we're back into formal sessions. Motion to adopt proceedings. Number 19.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that the action taken in Committee of the Whole in considering public meetings, deputations and presentations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports of city staff, consent agenda, committee minutes, matters postponed, motions for which notice was previously given, and additional business be confirmed by this council.
All in favor? That is carried. Notices of motion. Seeing none. Bylaws.
The bylaws listed for approval on tonight's agenda include the confirmatory bylaw, a bylaw to execute a site plan agreement with the Salvation Army for property at 365 14th Street West, and a bylaw to execute a facility use agreement with Owen Sound Minor Soccer Association for use of the Owen Sound Kiwanis Soccer Complex.
Go ahead, Brian. Thank you.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Kepke, that bylaw numbers 2018, 151, 152, 153 be passed and enacted.
All in favor? That's carried. That completes the business for tonight. There's all that talking, it's still only 8:26. Amazing. We're adjourned. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you December 3rd at the Roxy. Thank you.